Hello, welcome to Tech Talk Friday. I am Vincent from Artificial Intelligence Technologies Abuja. Today, I will be introducing you to data science using Python programming language. Specifically, I will be showing you how to set up your computer in order to get started. Okay, in order to get started today, we are going to be needing hardware tools and software tools. The hardware tools being your computer with either the Windows, Macintosh or Linux operating system, and the software tools being Visual Studio IDE and the Python interpreter, which we're going to get from their website. So if you have this ready already, don't bother, let's just get started, right? Okay, for the purpose of this lecture, we'll be using a Python library called Pandas. Pandas is an open source library that is used for data analysis. So it's a tool for data analysis. You can use it to manipulate data. It's very powerful and it's very easy to use. So, but to get Pandas, we must have the Python interpreter on our system, and we also have to get an IDE, which is also called an integrated development environment. And for this course or this lecture, what we are going to be using is the Visual Studio IDE. So first and foremost, you need to install the Python interpreter. To do that, we fire up our internet browser and we go to python.org. python.org. So from the Python website, you click on download. So to get the downloads, you click downloads, and then you click on any of the package installer we have here, depending on your operating system, whether you are using Linux, Macintosh or Windows. So the website automatically dictates the version of operating system you are using and gives you an option to download. So you click on download. Now when you download Python, you just run through the installation process. The installation process is simple and easy. Make sure you add to there's an option of add Python to path. So make sure you add Python to paths as it serves as the environment variable for Python to be able for your computer to be able to detect that Python has been installed on this computer. And that be first. Then we also need to download Visual Studio Code. So you go to the Visual Studio Code, you can Google it, and then you click on downloads right here, and we have it running. So you can also select depending on your operating system. So I have this all already installed on my computer, so I won't be going through that for now for the purpose of this lecture. So we fire up Visual Studio and see what we have. So I fire up Visual Studio Code on my computer. So right here I'm going to be creating a new Python file. So let me first of all go to my desktop and create a folder. So I have a folder, name it PyDev. So having done that, I'll open my Visual Studio Code, click on File, Open Folder, and on my desktop I select my folder PyDev, and that's it. Okay, right now we can now create a new file. Let's call it main.py. That's an error, so you just click here, main.py. Okay, now before we proceed, we need to install what we call the Pandas library, which I said we are going to use for this lecture. Now the Pandas library doesn't come pre-installed with the Python interpreter. Rather, you need to install it by yourself to use it. So one of the easiest way to do that is using a distribution, a Python distribution called Anaconda. Anaconda is vast, it's robust, it has some packages already installed in it, especially for data science, for scientific computing, for machine learning, and more. So for this purpose, for the purpose of this course, we're not going to be using Anaconda. We will just be using the Python interpreter and then install Pandas through what we call the Python installer package, so the pip. So we're going to run, so click on terminal and you click on new terminal and you see a terminal comes up here. So let's just adjust our terminal, and to install Pandas I will click on pip install. So you type pip, that is Python installer package, install Pandas. So I already have Pandas on my system, but let's see what it does for me right now. Okay, it's saying me requirements already satisfied. So but that is just the command to install Pandas into your computer. So whether you're using a Mac or you use a MacBook or a Linux or you're using Windows OS, you can always do that. So with that in mind, we can now create our first Python Pandas file and code. So to do that, to use Pandas, the first thing we do is to say import Pandas. So you see the IntelliSense, the autocomplete we have here already on Visual Studio Code helps us to auto predict what we want to write. So we having installed, having imported Pandas, because you have installed it through the package manager, you are now importing it to be used in your code. So you now have to create a variable. So for instance, we want to work on some data sets. You know, definitely every data has a column, has a tab on the row. So we have rows and columns that make up data sets. So Pandas has the ability to be able to analyze this, but before analyzing it, you must be able to at a point make sure that Python has read the contents of such data set. So how do we read the contents of such data set? Now we can do this. Let me say this is my data set, a variable called my data set, and you say here use it because the data set is naturally a Python dictionary. So when you're creating data sets, you're looking at a Python dictionary. So a dictionary, just like a normal, in our normal setting, you have a dictionary having a word and its meaning. So in Python, a dictionary has keys and values. So when trying to use it for data analysis, these keys now serve as the labels for each row, while the values serve as the columns itself. So for instance here, as I have set my data sets and I open a curly brace, so you see me doing that curly brace, and I just press enter to make my code neat. So I can now, as a string, I'll provide a key. So let me say the key is student, or let me say grade. That can go. And then you provide, sorry, that was a mistake. So you do this, you provide the values in the form of a list. So you see a list can come into a dictionary in Python. So to provide values, I can provide numeric values or string values by saying 200, 500, 500. So but since this is a grade, which you can also see that, so we can reduce the values to 50, 50, let's use 70 right here. Okay, so but before the grade, I think I would like to put the student's name, or just a student. So analyst 2, I will say Vincent, I will say John, I will say Doe. So I will say Doe. So you see each of the items or the elements of a list are being separated using a comma. And if you're using a string, if it's going to be a string value, make sure it has a quotation mark open and closed. And if it's not going to be a string, rather than a number or an integer, you don't have to put a quotation mark in it. So having done this, what I will have to do immediately right now, okay, I have to separate this with comma here, and then I'm going to print out this data set. So to make my code clean, so right now we can now say optimize data. So we create another variable and we say pandas dot So a method of Pandas called data frame. So this will help us in listing the data that we have here, listing it in the form of rows and columns, so we can know the particular or the structure of the data we have in our data sets. So it will be expecting a parameter, so I'll be passing my data sets to it. So my data sets, and then sorry, typographical error. So now I'm going to print out this data and say optimize data. So I'll print it to the console, and then we have that. So let's run that and see what we got. So you see, running that, we have the Python interpreter has interpreted our file, giving us two headers, students and grade, which served as the keys we had here, as I earlier mentioned. So for students, we have Vincent, John, and Doe, and while we have the grades as 20, 50, and 70. So if you did that successfully, welcome to the world of data science. You are now a data scientist, and you're being able to use one of the biggest libraries of data science, which is Pandas. There are so many libraries out there. We have Matplotlib, we have the NumPy, but for the sake of these lectures, we only looked at Pandas. So as I said earlier, make sure you have Python interpreter installed, and then you use the pip command to install Pandas, which is a library for data analysis. So once you have that running, you are good to go. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, don't forget to like our page, and for more information on data science and how you can learn data science and enroll with us at Artificial Intelligence Technologies, visit the website below. The link is there, click on it. We hope to see you next Friday. Thank you.